Okay, but you'll have an opportunity to talk then,
Okay.
or you can put your
Let's
name
put our
down
names
here.
down here too.
You can always say pass.
Okay.
Hey, Laura, how are you?
Good, how are you doing?
Good. What time is it?
The big clock said that.
Tino says 58. Good. Hey, Reggie. Hey, Laura, how are you?
How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Are you planning to go to the Solly's planning board meeting?
I don't know.
Terry's on the agenda.
Yeah, I mean, I'm focused on the Woodstock part of this, not so much the Saturday.
But that's where the.
I mean,
So I just,
go ahead.
I was going to suggest, because I know there's interest, that next week I would be happy to start the meeting. We could do it like 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock. Get through the business and then,
Because I would like to go.
And then go to the,
Because I would like to
meeting.
hear firsthand what they're proposing. Even though we can't speak, but if you hear firsthand.
it would not be bad to have a question.
I have it on my agenda. I'm not against going early to this meeting, the Tuesday meeting, and then
Yeah.
going to that meeting.
Okay, perfect. You're good with that? Yeah, like maybe 5 o'clock.
Then we can go to the Saturday planning.
5 wouldn't be bad, because I'd like to have executive session. I'm assuming we want to interview the 2 planning boards. I mean, the one guy we just put on CSAC, so we won't be interviewing him, but the second person definitely we should bring.
Okay, yeah, so it's
Yes.
5 o'clock.
Let's.
For executive session. So executive
Yes.
session.
Okay, folks, I'm going to call to order the December 13th meeting of the Woodstock Town Board. 2 items that I just wanted to touch on real quick before we get rolling with resolutions. The first, we were just talking next week. Actually, some of you will be very happy to hear this. Next week, the planning board in the town of Saugerties is going to have Terra Moore on their agenda. It's not a public hearing, but they're just getting an update on their application. I know that a couple of council people here would like to attend that. So I'm going to schedule our meeting next week to start at 5 o'clock. We will go into executive session first. We have 2 applicants to interview for planning board. And then we can start the meeting at 5:30 and have you guys on the road to Saugerties.
That's perfect. And their meeting starts at 7:30. The Solly's planning board starts at 7:30. I believe it's in the senior center.
So you'll have plenty of time. The second item, a number of years ago, we got a grant for $250,000 for the reed beds. And while I really wanted to see that project happen, there has not been agreement with the DEC about the reeds that we can use and whether they'd be acceptable. Kevin Cahill, who helped secure that grant, gave me a call the other day and asked if there was anything else, a big project we might consider. I said, we're in the middle of a renovation and addition here up on the Como. And he said, great, the Jeremy Wilbur Supervisor's Cottage. I said, if we could make that happen. So we are in the process of possibly rolling that over. That together with the $100,000 grant that Michelle, Senator Hitchie secured for us would give us $350,000 of the $1 million we need to bond. I have not finished crunching the numbers, but I believe with unappropriated fund balance and the bit of a windfall we've had with sales tax and mortgage tax this year, that we actually could do the project without bonding at all. So I would like you guys to think about that over the next week or 2. If you have questions, get back to me on it. Because if we are going to bond, we would need to start that process in January. Were we to bond for the 15 years, $1 million, it would cost us about $288,000 over that 15-year period. So something to consider. I think that it would be a wise move of financial windfall that we've seen over the last year or 2. But get back to me and like to try and make a decision, if not next week, at our year-end meeting on the, that should be on the 29th of December. So with that, I'm going to go through some resolutions, and then we'll come back to the topic.
Is there a spare copy of resolutions?
Oh, gave me-
I gave you
I thought that
mine.
was extra.
I gave you mine.
I don't have to, I
Okay.
could run off real
Well,
quick.
that's okay.
Look, I'll give you the
I put
rest
it off
of
what it
that.
was earlier, so let me.
Look, I'll give you the rest.
No, that's right.
Okay.
Good.
So the first item, be it resolved to schedule a public hearing for the proposed amendment to chapter 209 taxation law for the town of Woodstock to adjust income levels for partial exemptions for December 20th, 2022 at 7:00, oh, excuse me, let's change that to 5:30 PM.
It's not at 5, it's at 5:30.
The public hearing will be at
So the public hearing would be.
At 5:30.
Well, 5. Okay, got it.
And at the town offices, 45 Como Drive, Woodstock, New York, and be it further resolved to authorize the town clerk to publish in the town's official newspaper the following notice. Woodstock Town Board at a meeting held on December 13th, 2022, scheduled a public hearing for December 2022 at 5:30 PM at the town offices, 45 Como Drive, Woodstock, New York, to hear comment on the proposed amendment to chapter 209, the taxation law of the town of Woodstock to adjust income levels for partial exemptions. Second, for purpose of discussion. Second. So I did send you all the law. Basically, all we're amending in our taxation law are the different levels that seniors get exemptions. I don't have them right here in front of me, but so that it's just that list. That's all we're going
And
to
this was
do.
according to the state.
The state has amended to a permit for these. So we would be meeting the state's guidelines. We don't have to, but I think we all like to help our seniors. And it is based on income level. So it's helping the seniors who are really in need. All in favor? Or do I have a second? Who's second?
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, the next resolution I'm going to table, but I wanted to leave it in there just to have a quick conversation. I did forward to you, we have the building code law, which it's a state requirement. We have this. It talks about our building codes and our adherence to that, the building inspector and whatnot. The state has changed their guidelines and requirements, so we have to adopt a new law. I've sent you out a version of it. There is some red in there, some decisions and questions we need to make, but that pretty much follows along with what we presently have in slightly greater depth. So if you all could take a look at that, I would like to have that public hearing in January.
Do you want to move to table it, or do you?
I'm not even going to offer it. Laura,
Yes.
oh, do you have the
Well, I
resolution?
have, yeah, online.
I'll let you read it.
Okay. So, so the cell tower first, right?
Yes.
Whereas the Woodstock Town Board wishes to amend the Woodstock zoning law to regulate the placement of cell towers, antennas, and other such equipment. And whereas the committee appointed by the town supervisor reviewed various studies and documentation on the topic and made recommendations with regards to regulations. And whereas the Woodstock Town Board submitted to the Woodstock Planning Board and the Ulster County Planning Board a zoning amendment proposal to regulate the placement of cell towers, antennas, and other such equipment. And whereas the town supervisor completed a full environmental assessment. And whereas the Woodstock Town Board held public hearing on November 22nd, 2022, where the public comment was taken. Now therefore be it resolved that the Woodstock Town Board, 1, closes the public hearing, 2, declares that the proposed action will not have significant negative impact on the environment, and 3, adopts the local law number 5 of 2022. Be it further resolved to request the town clerk file local law number 5 with the state and forward the negative declaration with the Ulster County Planning Board, the Woodstock Environmental Commission, and post it on the environmental notice bulletin.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It didn't happen as quickly as you had hoped, but I think we got a good law out of it. So, thank you.
guys.
It's an excellent law. It was a collaborative team effort. My thanks to everybody. Steve, I know Steve, Nicole, your group. The zoning revision committee reviewed it. Andrew Campanelli wrote it. We all combed through it from end to end. So I think there are a lot of eyes went on it. And I am very happy with it because I know how much work everybody put into it. And yay.
I still think we should pay for it. I think we should pay for it. I still think that we should be paying Campanelli's full bill.
Whereas the Woodstock Town Board wishes to amend the Woodstock zoning law to regulate activities, development, and land use in the immediate area surrounding the town's well field in order to protect water purity. Whereas the committee appointed by the supervisor reviewed various studies and documentation on the topic and made recommendations with regard to regulations. And whereas the Woodstock Town Board submitted to the Woodstock Planning Board and the Ulster County Planning Board a zoning amendment proposal to regulate activities, development, and land use in the immediate area surrounding the town's well field for their review. And whereas the town supervisor completed a full environmental assessment, and whereas the Woodstock Town Board held a public hearing on November 22nd, 2022, where public comment was taken. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Woodstock Town Board closes the public hearing, declares the proposed action will not have a significant negative impact on the environment, adopts local law number 6 of the year 2022. Be it further resolved to request the town clerk file local law number 6 with the state and forward a negative declaration to the Ulster County Planning Board, Woodstock Environmental Commission, and post it on the environmental notice bulletin.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is Ken Panza here?
Yeah,
Ken? I know
I'd
that,
just like to say a few words because we've been involved with this process for quite a while. And I want to
you don't
congratulate
say. Thanks for hanging in there.
for bringing it across the finish line. But it was like exactly 8 years ago when I was on the town board, we appointed the wellhead protection working group of Laura as deputy supervisor, Jay Wink, and Jerry Washington and Ed Sanders. And they started working, and immediately they brought in Steve Winkley from the Rural New York Water Association. But there's other people that have been involved in this along the way. We applied to the Department of Health to get some technical information about the septic tanks out in Bearsville. As everyone knows, that's a pretty densely populated area with a pretty dense concentration of septic tanks. So there are questions about the validity and usability of the wells in that area. And so they appointed a person by the name of Greg Jung, who was a bright young fellow just right out of school, enthusiastic, and he really helped us out to understand the characteristics of those septic fields and answered a lot of questions that we had. The second group of people that really participated in this were those involved with the natural resources inventory. We redid all the maps for Woodstock, brought them up to full GIS, modern capabilities, and there are two people. This was organized by the Hudsonia, not Hudsonia, but Ingrid Heckel from the estuary. But Ben Gannon from the Department of Environment, Ulster County, redid all of our aquifer maps, bringing in all the information from the state. And a fellow by the name of Tim Kosh, who works with the Shokan watershed, really did a terrific job untangling all our existing GIS maps and producing a map which outlined all the well fields and the entire water district that we have. And that was the base map that Judy Kerman used to really build the map for this. But this project went back 30 years. And it was some of the early members of the Environmental Commission that established the project. And Anne Brandt, most of you probably don't remember her, but she was an early advocate for wellhead protection. She's the one who got the original project started, brought in those consultants that we studied, originally brought in Steve Winkley, and again, Jerry Washington, Jay Wing, and Ed Sanders were all involved. But Anne has, based on her contribution, she has a memorial tree planted for her. And the memorial tree, as you might expect, is planted at well field number 1. With a bronze plaque that says, a passionate defender of the environment who served with distinction for 31 years on the Woodstock Environmental Commission. So, I mean, there's been a lot of work done, and Laura's group took it over the finish line, but she had a chance to stand on some really strong shoulders to get it done. And beginning from 30 years was Ann Brandt, Ed Sanders, Jerry Washington, Jay Wink, and Steve Winkley, who really formed the core group that helped bring this all together. So congratulations. It's been a long haul, and we're finally done.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jerry. 2007, one of the last meetings Jeremy Wilbur and I were at during that term, we actually passed a wellhead protection law, and it didn't get filed properly by the incoming administration. So we did have one, it never really took effect, but I think this law is a little better than that one. So congratulations.
Yeah, and we had a great, and that, everything that Ken said, I agree with everything Ken said, and then we had a great group. I know that, you know, Bennett was on it, Judy was on it, we had Kirk Ritchie and Deborah DeWan. The group that was finally looking at Arlene Weissman to bring it along. But, you know, I think with great fondness back to Jay Wenk and Jerry Washington, because this was their passion, and they're not here to celebrate with us, but I remember them as we passed this law because it was so important to them. They were very hard to move us this direction.
Thank you, Laura. Be it resolved to accept the resignation of Connor Wayne from the planning board and thank him for his service.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Be it resolved to authorize the town clerk to advertise openings on all volunteer boards.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout New York, the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious soils by wind and water, cutting heating and cooling costs on average $39 per tree per year, remove 261 pounds of pollutants each year per tree, produce life-giving oxygen, remove 24 tons of carbon dioxide each year per tree, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of the business area, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic delayed the celebration of Arbor Day, therefore be it resolved, Woodstock Town Board does hereby proclaim December 16, 2022 to be recognized as our National Arbor Day in the town of Woodstock, and urges all its residents to celebrate every Arbor Day and support efforts to protect our trees and our woodlands. Be it further resolved to urge all citizens to plant new trees and maintain and care for their existing trees so as to gladden the hearts and promote the well-being of this and future generations.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Everyone have a happy Arbor Day. Be resolved to authorize the Woodstock Highway Superintendent to go out to bid for municipal salt, and be further resolved to authorize the town clerk to advertise the legal notice in the town newspaper.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Be it resolved to appoint Elvin Ware to the Woodstock Human Rights Commission, term to expire 12/31/25.
Second.
So if you recall, when we interviewed this gentleman, there was a question, he might be moving out of town. That's not going to happen. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we talked about executive session next week. We'll have our meeting scheduled for 5 o'clock. We'll start in the supervisor's cottage. We can interview our 2 applicants for the planning board and then start the main meeting at 5:30.
So, and I do want to, one thing I was remiss in talking about the other laws we just passed is, Bill, I do want to thank you, because one role of the supervisor is creating the environment where the teams can spring up and the teams can do the work. And you appointed the zoning revision committee, you appointed the water work, the process, work on the final. So I want to thank you for providing the environment where we can all, the 5 of us can be stepping up in our own ways and making a difference. In this case, it was environmentally, and I'm very happy we as a board made these huge steps forward environmentally.
Thank you, Laura. Appreciate that. I'm going to move on to topics. So I just, because I think was a little bit of confusion the last couple of days about this. I've been getting some emails and whatnot. So back on August 29th, Maria Elena, you were involved in the SDR task force, made recommendations for amendments to our zoning law, to the STR law. At that time, we were involved in a couple of different things, including the budget, the laws that we passed. So my recommendation at that time was in December, I would bring this back as a topic for the board to discuss what we want to do with these. Do we want to adopt them wholesale? Do we want to tweak them? Do we want to adopt some and reject others? So really, I just want to start out asking the board if you guys have any thoughts on what you want to do with this or how you want to approach the issue. You will get the emails that I keep sending you. We have an SDR owners group that's been very involved in discussing a lot of this. I think a few of them are here tonight. So I'll start with the board and then I'll go out to the public, and I'm going to keep it a little short, like maybe 30 seconds, a minute for each, and we'll go through. And ultimately, this is a beginning, as I said. It's not, this is not, we're going to make a decision tonight. So I'll start with you, Maria Elena.
Would it be possible to have, I've sent a number of times for everyone to look at. So if you have any comments or questions, do you think it would be useful to have an executive session to go over all of the
Oh,
points?
no,
Or do you want to,
we can't talk
and then
about.
bring it here so that we can discuss publicly?
No, we have to discuss, we can't,
Okay.
that's not an
So then-
executive session.
So then you don't want to go over each line item, or you do?
We can, but we have to do it with the 5 members of the public.
We
No, that's
can.
fine. I'm saying tonight, are we doing that tonight?
No, I thought we would just start a general topic, discussion of the topic, and if that's your proposal, we can schedule a meeting for January where we can go over each.
We can
step.
start it tonight, but I just wanted to know exactly what the scope of that, what that.
So
really
that's
is.
your preference would be to set up a meeting and go by.
Because there also has to be discussion between the SDR task force and the housing oversight task force as well.
Mhm.
Because there are
With some of their feedback.
yeah, they definitely need feedback. They need to collaborate on that for sure. So.
So do you want to talk to those two committees and get a sense of a timetable from them on when they would?
Yeah, I'll definitely be doing that.
Okay.
But as far as tonight, I mean, if there's any comments or questions, I'll record all of that so that I can bring that
Okay.
back to the STR task force.
Bennett, did you have any thoughts on how?
Well, I think there's some things in the recommendations that point specifically to us as a board and ask us if we have these preferences or
Mhm.
not. And I think that needs to be first clarified. In those recommendations, we're being asked, should we consider a lottery system or not?
Mhm.
The STR task force did not speak as to what they thought we should be doing on this. Instead, they put it in as something that we should be considering
Mhm.
as a town board. So I think, that one.
Well, that
certainly-
was a recommendation, I believe, initially from the supervisor, was a lottery system.
And that emanated from, I do recognize that there's just somewhat unfair process where we give out permits and then those 200, 300 whatever permits we give out now go with the property for life until they decide not to get them. And that's not unsimilar to a taxi medallion or a liquor license, where somebody gets them and they have them and nobody else can get it. But at the same time, I suggested that's one way to kind of even things out. Now, I don't think anybody was really thrilled about that lottery idea, but I only put it out there because one of the things that I hear a lot of is that it's not fair. And I can't say, yeah, I disagree with you, that there is a little unfairness that 200 or 300 people got the permit and now everybody's locked out until they don't do it. So that's where
So I just think that's one issue that we as a board need to come to agreement on. I don't know whether we do that before they talk to the Housing Oversight Task Force or after they talk to the Housing Oversight Task Force, but we do need to come to agreement on that. In addition, the recommendations call for guidance from the board on certain things like fee violations and the amounts that those fee violations should be. They are suggesting that that these fees be increased, and they are asking the board specifically, not do you should be increased, but what do you think they should be increased to?
So, and that's something with the zoning revisions that we're looking at, that's something we're gonna add in there. If you look at the back of the zoning law, you'll see where the penalties are. And they are, I mean, they haven't been touched in 25, 30 years. I think they need to be increased quite a bit. And so that you're correct, that's something we need to, as a board, come into. Would it be helpful if we, if over the next 2 to 3 weeks, we all go through this and maybe make notes and circulate a document, and then in January, come back and coalesce around the points we agree on?
I certainly think it would be good if we all, voiced our input on what we believe some of these things should and could be. In particular are parts that we need to do. But I would also like to ask that the STR task force take the advice of the board in understanding what we want the policy goal for this to be. Is the policy goal for this to be the regulation of STRs, or is the policy goal for this to be the regulation of STRs and the promotion of affordable housing? I think that there's a dynamic there that is not particularly well defined that the board should be voicing its opinion on. I, for one, have a very firm opinion about it, but I don't believe that it's really staked out in the task force's recommendations. I think we should be doing both of those things.
Well, I think that's a discussion that the town board should have.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
And again, my thought was that we kind of start that conversation tonight, set the guidelines, the parameters, where we want to go with this. The whole idea behind the task force, when we first created the STR law in 2018, we did vow that, 2 or 3 years down the line, we would take a look at this. This is a brand new law. No other town in the county had one. And we really wanted to get a sense of what was working and what wasn't. And I think that's the primary goal here. So.
Well, I agree that revisions are always necessary to things, but I'd like us to be really definitive in stating what our policy goal or goals are. And I think that then the next thing that I think that we should be doing is taking these recommendations and engaging all stakeholders, not just the Housing Oversight Task Force. And that will help us to recraft what I think are some of these simple regulation changes that they're proposing, and allow us to consider others that maybe have not been thought of. One, for instance, would be to move all the permitting online, move the entire thing online. What if everything was all online?
We're actually working on that right now for all building permits. So that would encompass.
So that would be something that I think might be a really interesting way to increase transparency also in this. And I think that the other thing that we need to discuss as a board is enforcement. I think we need to dedicate funds to enforcement. and dedicate funds to communication about what the enforcement is as well. I think that if we're going to pass these laws, then we need to also fund the enforcement of these laws. Because if we don't do that, we might as well just not pass these laws.
Well, I think Butch has done a great job, and now he's got a helper in there that'll be full-time come January 1st.
But I'm looking forward. I'm saying, I'm not looking at what has happened. And he sat right there and he was very, very clear. He said he did not have the resources. He needed the resources. He didn't have the expertise that he would welcome any sort of support for that. And I think that we gotta pony up. And, you know, maybe one way that when we do pony up is that we ask people who are getting these great, you know, permits to pay more for them.
Well, and that's part of what's in here is a suggestion that we up the permit.
And there, as well as the need for better process and enforcement. So that's all he's also recommended.
So that's how I feel about it. I think that the town needs to define some goals, engage stakeholders, listen to them recrafting some of their suggestions. And then we need to have a serious discussion about funding enforcement at the board level.
Thank you. Laura?
There's a couple of thoughts. So I do appreciate the idea that the board gets together and we go through, you know, the documents. So I think that's a good idea. I hear you got about the stakeholders. I guess my question would be, would it make more sense to have the board talk first about what we think and then call in stakeholders, or have a listening session with stakeholders and then have the board have this conversation? So I'm not sure which ought to come first or how the best approach there is. But I certainly think taking it and you know, going through it and having, you know, reaching some agreements on it is the way to go.
I don't think it would hurt to, at the very least, everybody take a look and make notes and you know, are there things in there that there's just absolutely no way you would support? And if, you know, a majority of the board would not want to move in one direction, we should take that off the
It's good to
table.
know that, yeah. But the other thing too is that the copy I'm looking at is a PDF. If we get a Word document, people can actually comment, right, board members can comment right in it.
Mhm.
And if we're really organized, we'll do it one at a time so that everybody's comments can be
Or
added.
different colors.
Or different colors, but if we do it one at a time,
Mhm.
we'd, you know, we could all be adding the same document if we do one at a time. But anyway, can we get did this come from Maria Elena? Can we get a Word document?
We can convert it.
A Word version?
Do me a favor, send me a text tomorrow or an email tomorrow.
The original I had in Word, and then I converted it to PDF because I wanted to make sure that I had the latest version. I didn't want to confuse anything.
Right.
So I wanted to make sure you all had the latest version.
So I'll take and convert that and send it out to everybody tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll make sure it matches up.
Reggie, did you want to add anything or yours?
I don't. I'll be ready when we get that in Word document
Okay.
to comment.
So what I'm going to do now is open to the floor and I'm going to start off short because again, this is only the beginning of a conversation. So let me get my.
As far as the topic.
Yes.
So as you mentioned, the Woodstock STR Association, we've spent a lot of time preparing for tonight, based on the conversation that we had that this was happening tonight. Would it be possible, since we represent 77 people, for us to have 2 minutes each, the three of us? So for a total of 6 minutes, we prepared very carefully. And
Well, let me go out to the, how many people want to talk about STRs tonight? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, let's start out with 2 minutes apiece and we'll see where it goes. So who wants to go first? I'll just do one of these when there's 15 seconds left.
then we'll pass it to Heather and
Okay, excellent.
Hi, my name is Michael Henry. I owned a home in Bearsville since 2004 with my wife and kids. We've been doing short-term rentals since about 2008 until we got a letter in 2021 saying we needed to get a permit, but there were no permits. So the Woodstock Short-Term Rental Association, we're seeking legislation that's fair to everyone involved, consistently applied, and targeted to address the real issues that all the stakeholders care about. the desire to maintain local character and quality of life, the town's need for visitor accommodations to support the local tourist economy and restaurants and everything, and the part-time residents' needs for income to maintain their home. Many of our members have been residents of Woodstock part-time for many years or even decades. And although the current restrictions are intended to support the community, they unfairly prohibit us from maintaining our connection, forcing us either to rent, to sell or but we want to use the houses ourselves sometimes. Most of the homeowners spend the majority of the money generated by their rentals to maintain their homes, pay local taxes, and employ local housekeeping staff, tradespeople, and contractors. Many of the core restrictions of the STR legislation that already exists, if they were enforced, would make investing in short-term rentals unappealing to profit-oriented absentee landlords and corporations, especially the limits on the number of nights each year that a property can be rented and the prohibition in multiple permits for the same owner. Right now, those aren't being enforced. There are plenty of owners with more than one house. A transparent and fair registration process along with these rules would ensure that STR permits will be issued only to those homeowners with genuine connections to the community we all know and love, while eliminating the concern that housing stock is being snapped up purely for investment and speculation. If those restrictions were enforced, we believe that a cap would be unnecessary. The people who are trying to just be there for investment would leave, and we wouldn't have an oversupply of STRs.
Thank you, Michael.
I am Heather Cross. My family and I have owned a home here since 2011 that we rented out short-term until we were notified that we were not allowed to do that and didn't have a permit. Short-term rentals are being unfairly scapegoated for our community's affordable housing shortage. On the contrary, revenue from short-term rental permits could provide significant funds to expand affordable housing stock in the community. Information gathered by STR permitting could be used to identify units that could be suitable for long-term rentals, and permitting fees can be used to incentivize owners to convert appropriate STRs into other properties into long-term rentals. Revenue could also be used to help fund efforts to build additional ADUs, expand the home share program, and support other projects that the Housing Committee is supporting. The existing STR law also makes a misguided distinction between owner-occupied and non-owner occupied housing units. The cap favors owner-occupied units, which are often the most suitable for long-term rental. Meanwhile, non-owner occupied homes tend to be single-family homes that are not available because the owners use their homes. The cap has been applied in an arbitrary and haphazard manner. Many individuals, including those who are registered with Ulster County as operating STRs and paying the county tax, were never notified by the town about the permitting requirement until after the cap had been reached. The number was set without any well-founded data and was suddenly and significantly reduced in the middle of the pandemic lockdown. Meanwhile, professional real estate investors snapped up all the permits. Many of the current permits are held by LLCs with absentee ownership and/or owners of multiple properties. Incredibly, several permits have been issued to new home buyers since the cap was reached, and even in the past few months.
My name is Lisa Cook. My family has owned a house in Woodstock for 45 years. We were renting it short term until we received a notice that we needed a permit and couldn't get one. STR issues are complex. The combination of short-term rental experience and extensive analysis has made us in the Woodstock STR Association able to offer insight into the nuances of the issues so that regulations will actually address the issues that stakeholders care about and really get the outcomes that we want. Specifically, we're asking the town board to remove the cap on STR permits and establish variable permit fees based on property rental value, earmark some of the revenue from permit fees to support affordable housing, and to provide full public access to records of all aspects, and enforce the aspects of STRs designed to discourage investors. And while the town board goes through all of this, we're asking you to grant permits to grandfather us in those who were already doing this prior to the law legally in Ulster County, and pause the penalties and violations until the board is able to move forward. For over a year, our association has made efforts to work collectively with the town board and the STR task force through Maria Elena. Recent meetings with town board members and housing committee leadership have demonstrated that opportunities are available when we work together. Part-time residents have always been a part of the fabric of Woodstock, and volunteerism is an essential part of what makes our community special and successful. So we are here and we're eager to participate in creating legislation that serves our entire community. And we have prepared for each of you some information that we've spent time putting together that we hope is informative and educational about STRs. And if anybody here would like a copy of these documents, we would be happy to email it to you. So please put your name and email. And that's a link to our very simple site at the bottom. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there somebody else that wanted to?
Okay, sure. Hi, my name is Tricia McDermott, and I'm here to say that I stand with the STR Association's recommendations to the board. When I bought my home in 2020, I knew that Woodstock was enacting permitting rules around STRs, and that appealed to me because I thought that they were fair, and I also liked knowing going in what the town had in mind. Now, more than 2 years later, I still am not able to apply for a permit myself. Supervisor McKenna, I was the one that sent you the email likening them to taxi medallions and liquor licenses. My husband and I are ready to apply. Just want to see the process move forward and open up again. People want to visit Woodstock, and a lack of Airbnbs fuels projects of mega projects like Terramore that many of us here are against. That money could be going toward affordable housing initiatives. And finally, I'll just give an example of how places out west with elite ski towns and such have imposed double-digit taxes or more on Airbnb rentals. People have shown that they're willing to pay it just to visit towns as beautiful as ours. And that money, I think, could have a real impact on bringing more people into the town and giving them affordable places to live.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I won't start until you're unmasked. Go.
I'll be quick. Number one, I am a STR owner. I applied when the program was first announced, and I believe that I've lived up to the spirit and the letter of the law. I have a 5-star rating on VRBO. Number two, the income that I derive from my STR pays my taxes, which go up every year. I have the dubious distinction of living in Woodstock, but paying sorry school tax. If I lose my certificate, I'll be looking seriously at something else. Number four, I totally agree that we should prohibit absentee ownership. I think it should be a local issue, especially with people who are, the original Airbnb concept was renting out a room so that you could augment your income. I think that, the town should, I agree that the town should require the maintenance of high standards, treat the people who come and stay in your place, and however that is regulated or monitored. And number six, I think that we should relax the cap to really look at, what makes sense. I was actually present for the town board meeting. I watched it on Zoom when the number was actually agreed upon, and it was kind of arbitrary.
When the number was amended downwards.
Yeah, I think it was around 300, and somebody said, well, 270, someone was something like a 280, and it just kind of arbitrary. There really was no empirical data to, and I'm just saying that. It's kind of like an aside. And the last thing is Ulster County imposes a 2% tax right now on everything. And you're right, people do pay it. And I think that if you want to raise money for low-income housing or things like that, put a tax on it. So, the visitors will pay it. It doesn't come up when we collect it, we pay Ulster County, we can pay Woodstock.
So I'll just address a couple of things.
Sure.
I wish that we could tax it like that. We can't tax. We're not a city.
Yeah.
I would love that.
But you can charge permitting fees.
We can, and that's one of the recommendations.
You could charge permitting fees.
Can you, would a percentage fee be a tax? Or would it have to be a flat fee?
No, it wouldn't necessarily. There are different ways that we could have that permitting fee.
Yeah, okay, because I think that probably makes the most sense.
Not that I don't believe we can have it based on your income, but more the size of the bedrooms or whatnot. the number of bedrooms.
If you did it, I don't need it, I mean, you know that if it's a percent, it's automatically gonna have a ripple effect.
Right.
You know, if it's $200 a night, and it's 2%, that's whatever it is. If it's $500 a night, that's whatever it is. So,
Right.
anyway, no, that's not my place. I'm just saying that I'd be in favor of that.
Anyone else have anything on there?
I was sitting here,
Just to say your name for the town clerk.
Regina Bonita. As I was sitting here, I looked up on the 2020 census for Woodstock, New York. Apparently, and I'm sure you know these numbers, occupied housing units, 9,411. Owner occupied, 688. Renter occupied, 8,722. How is that accurate
It is.
on the US Census?
What is that for?
Off the 2020 census.
And what does it say? There were 9,000 houses in Woodstock.
Occupied, Woodstock, New York. Occupied housing units, 9,411. Owner occupied, 688. Renter occupied, 8,722. It also says.
That doesn't make any
And
sense.
I just don't understand how that's on.
There were about 4,400 parcels in Woodstock. There were about 3,300 homes. Some of them,
That's what I was gonna ask you.
9,000 is not possible.
So,
I'd love to take a look. Is there any way you could email that to me?
I can.
Yeah, please do that.
Absolutely, they give more information than that. They even say that before 1929, there were more than 3,000 homes built, and 2010 or later, less than 500 in our community. So
I'll take a look at that maybe next week.
this is the data off the 2020 census.
Thank you.
And STRs are affecting my ability to live in Woodstock because I'm low income. I'm on RUPCA. And I can't find a place to live that's affordable here. I'm gonna be priced out and I don't know where to go. Honestly, that's the truth of the matter. And I'm
And
being
that's-
asked to leave by my landlord.
That's one of the reasons we look to regulate it.
So wouldn't it be a good idea if the Woodstock Housing Initiative worked with the Ulster County Housing Initiative to try and do something maybe, and I'm not trying to mix apples and oranges, but if the original Terramore property was supposed to be for 20 some odd residential homes, wouldn't it behoove the two towns to combine themselves and try to do something positive with that original site plan and build green and conserve the wildlife and keep. the
Okay,
wetlands?
I'm gonna pull it back up. Thank you.
So, I'm just saying. Yeah.
Bill, I'd like to say something. Bill,
Michael,
Who's that?
Michael.
Bill, I'm on the Zoom call.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. I'll give you 2 minutes. This is about SDRs?
Yeah, you're on mute all of a sudden, Michael. Michael, you're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I understand, Bill, what this is all about. I just wanted to reinforce what Bennett said about enforcement and paying for that. You just passed a law tonight that, if I understand correctly, is going to require enforcement for people who live in the wellhead protection area. They're going to be required to pump their septic tanks every year, from what I understand. That's going to have to be enforced. You've got enforcement with the 5G and potential antennas going up around town. And now this, and my own personal experience is that the town is not even capable of enforcing the laws that they have currently on the books. It's been brutal trying to get the town to enforce some of its own laws. I think before you go jumping ahead, passing more laws, I think you really need to seriously look at how you're going to enforce them. And then take the next step. That's my 2 cents. I agree with what Bennett had to say.
Thank you. Melanie, was there someone else who wanted to talk about the SDRs?
Yes, Teresa Smith.
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Okay, Teresa, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Dear members of the Woodstock Town Board and community, I am a full-time resident and homeowner in Woodstock. I believe that in the case of owner-occupied STRs, it is safe to expand the number of permits available, as owner-occupied STRs are overseen by on-site residents. The guests of such are unlikely to cause disruptions and can bring revenue to the town. I am a dance teacher and single mother. I bought my house in Woodstock in 2019, though I moved here from New Paltz in 2017. My house is the only property I own. There is a studio cottage on the property that I rent to guests currently by the month, though it is hard to find people who want to stay that long. The studio is not large enough to work as a full-time year-round residence and also expensive to heat with baseboard electric heating. The house and studio are part of Woodstock history, built in 1934 by a member of the Maverick Arts Colony. By the time I bought it, it had fallen into a state of disrepair, but I fell in love with the house, the land, and the town. I like sharing this special place with guests and telling them about Woodstock's artistic legacy. The pandemic and a disappearing contractor delayed the completion of renovations. By the time I was ready for the permitting process, it had been closed. I have waited patiently for the opportunity to submit an application since then. The restriction on STRs has had a big impact on my expected finances and ability to care for the property. Over the last couple of years, I've considered selling this house, a house I had hoped to pass on to my children. As an artist, I feel I represent an important sub-community of Woodstock, one that needs ways of continuing to live and work here. I know that there are many residents who, like me, rent their homes or part of them, not as investment properties, but as a way of remaining in and contributing to this beautiful community. We want to stay here. We don't want to be pushed out by a proliferation of hotels and investors, and granting owner-occupied and some other permits is a way to make this possible. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else online? Okay, then I'm gonna
Yeah,
bring it back.
I can jump in if I may.
Go ahead, 2 minutes.
Yes, hi. I don't have anything prepared, but I just wanted to come and join the voices of the Woodstock short-term rental owners. I am also an owner. I have a family with young children, and my husband and I fell in love with Woodstock during the many times that we visited over the past 10 years. And we always knew that we wanted to have our children have a piece of Woodstock in their lives. And so we looked and looked and waited to try to find something that we could afford in Woodstock to be able to expose them to all that the area has to offer. We finally did, and much like Teresa, we bought a home that had a legacy to it. There was a woman named Helen Weaver who owned this home. She passed away and her family sold us this house. We realized that it was affordable because there was so much that needed to be done to make the house actually livable. And so we invested money that we really didn't have to be able to run the water, make the electric safe, and do all the things we needed to do to make sure that our kids had a great place to live and to play. And unfortunately, as a result of those things, we are on the brink of no longer being able to afford the house. So we're in a position of needing to have some short-term rental income. It's a little difficult to try to find renters from what I hear that are willing to stay a month or longer. And I'm also nervous about what I hear about squatters' rights and things like that if I rent to somebody for a longer period. So I really fully support the short-term rental effort. We intend to be in the house as much as we can, but it would be nice to know that we could be able to offset some of these costs that we had not intended in incurring through short-term rental.
Could you just state your name for the town clerk?
Sure, it's Amanda Cruiser.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna bring it back up to the town board. So,
Oh, it looks like there's somebody who's hand went up. Steve.
all right, last member of the public, and then we're gonna come back to town board. Is there a Steve there who wanted to say something?
Yeah, upper left, Steve Hale. He had a hand up. Did you want to speak, Steve?
Okay, I'm gonna bring it back to the town board then. So do you think by our second meeting or business meeting in January, we could have reviewed this, come to some conclusions about a document that we want to start to have a serious discussion about? And in the meantime, what I will do, I'll send a Word document out and I'll include the SDR committee. I'll send it to you, Lisa. You can be the point person. And you could also make recommendations to this document specifically. And of course, anybody else is entitled and encouraged to send their thoughts to the town board. And I'll post this document on the website tomorrow. And we'll go from there. So we'll shoot for third Tuesday in January. Okay.
I do have, I guess, a thought for the moment. And that is, I know when we were, because Bill, you and I were on the board, and I think Reggie, you were too, when we put the STR law in place. And we had clear reasons to do it. Things were definitely out of control. They were out of hand. There were just too many STRs. There were too many transients in town. There were too many people that didn't care about the noise they made or the trash they left. And with the STR law, I haven't heard complaints like that about that. So I feel like the STR law did handle, the worst of what we were trying to make it handle. So it is a fair question to say, what is the right balance to do? Clearly, we needed to take action because things were very bad. So I think it is something that we can all think about is, what is the right balance that we want to strike right now?
Right. It's a fair question to ask. One of the things I will say is that things started to improve dramatically even before we actually adopted a law, because all of a sudden SDR owners saw that we were serious and that this was going to happen. And really, hats off to them. Many of them cleaned up their act, made sure. I don't even want to say they cleaned up their act. That's not right. They became aware that their rentals had implications on the residents, and they took efforts to correct it. I remember many times talking about, I was the poster child for bad STR. My neighbor had one, and it was the worst nightmare. 4 or 5 bedrooms with a swimming pool, and every Friday night at 2 in the morning, the party started, to the point where I would have to go up and knock on the door. When the owner, and actually the way this came about is after going through this for a year, the owner actually showed up at my door one day, not happy that I was, engaging his renters. And I said, come up on my deck. And he came up. We could hear his son and wife talking in their yard. I said, now picture that at 2 in the morning. That was the last time I had a problem. I mean, he got it. He understood it. So it's hard to say what brought about the better behavior, is it numbers or whatnot, but we'll continue to work on it.
Those issues are not really the issue anymore.
Well, I think that we can take a look at what is the right balance, because the things that were so out of hand that caused us to put the law in place, those things I believe have come because we were hearing things all the time from people about, you just have to do something about this issue. And I'm not hearing that so much, but what is the right balance? But the other issue that we're trying to solve with it is we need volunteers in town. This town runs on volunteers. We love our volunteers. And if everybody that's in town is a transient, you're not going to have any volunteers. We have volunteer fire department, we have so many volunteer committees. And so we clearly need the right balance to make sure that the town's healthy.
Okay, so I'm going to go to Tony.
I just listening to this, I have just one kind of quick comment. First of all, I liked your description of what it was like to live next to one that was uncontrolled. And secondly, I've noticed that everybody who seems to be talking about wanting to see SDRs here are people who personally want to do it. And it seems to me that we're getting a very unbalanced approach because we have so many people here that are pushing for it, but they're only the people that are pushing because they want to do it. And I'd like to see that if there's an equal push for it or against it from the people who want to do it. We can't decide that just because everybody who is coming here talking about it are people who want to have it, that makes them somehow the majority. They're the majority of the people who want it, that's for sure. But it's not necessarily representing everybody. And again, your point of view of trying to make a mix, because I think that we get it, a lot, the squeaky wheel often gets the grease, but we maybe don't want to give the squeaky wheel grease until we find out what the other people feel.
And we do hear from both sides.
Yeah,
I will
That's a
say.
good point.
Yeah.
Well said.
Tonight, maybe not, but there is equal representation. With that, I'm going to go to public be heard. Susan Painter. So I'll tap when we're at 15 seconds.
Okay, so I had 2 minutes several months ago, at which point I shared with you that Terramore Goliath Corporation through KOA was planning to take 77 acres, which are technically on Saugerty's property, but 50 feet from Woodstock. We've since learned that the 89 structures amounting to 60,000 square feet will now be affecting Woodstock in profound ways. And we really want Woodstock to protect our community. What we've learned from our hydrologist is that the wetlands do not stop at a town border, as Terramore stated. They actually said, here's where the wetland stops. And now we know that the wetland continues into the town of Woodstock. It serves an incredibly important role in flood resilience and in the purification and filtration of our water supplies. We now know that that wetland complex in Woodstock is at risk because of Terramore. We also know that when our hydrologists and our geologists tested wells, they tested several in Saugerties and several in Woodstock. And of the 3 wells that were impacted, that had significant drawdown and could potentially run dry with extended use, we did learn that one of the Woodstock wells, which was close to 1,000 feet from Terramore, was impacted profoundly. And that tells us that there will be many Woodstock wells that will be affected. We also know, in addition to wells running dry, wetlands being destroyed, we have an endangered species on that land, the Indiana bat. We also, just one more.
15 seconds.
Would anyone like me to finish?
No. I'm running the meeting. That's
Just checking.
come on, 15 seconds.
Okay. So we want Woodstock to become an involved agency and protect our property values too, because a sale was lost of $350,000 because the person found out that they would be living next door to a resort. It's estimated 20% reduction in property value, which will directly affect the finances of the town. And here's the latest report from our hydrologist.
Just one for each of us?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm really here just to sort of echo what Susan is saying. I'm rather new to learning about the details of this project, but yes, what she is saying is very true. Yes, there are borders, Saugerties and Woodstock, there's a border there, but air pollution, noise pollution, traffic pollution, it doesn't know about a border. It permeates, and I want to make sure that people really understand that. So just because it's not in your little square of property doesn't mean that it's not going to affect. We're a small community, everybody's involved, and it's really important that the Woodstock Town Board and Woodstock residents understand that even though it's technically in Saugerties, it's coming right into your area. Everything, noise, water, air pollution, traffic, property values. Just because the property value of one home in Saugerties goes down, it doesn't mean it's not going to affect those crossing right over into the border. So I'm just really here to echo what Susan is talking about. And she does have, we have a tremendous amount of information. I emailed everybody on the board earlier with a one-page summary and links to websites and social media sites that are very, very specific and very detailed in the information. And I encourage everybody to please read it and pay close attention.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
2 minutes.
Ready?
Go. Oh, go. All right.
I'm here tonight after we're
Actually, if I could address the board, yeah.
Oh, okay. Not familiar with protocol. I'm here tonight to, I guess, boil down what I was going to say because 2 minutes is way too short for me. I'm here to deliver, I guess, what amounts to a loving warning. You guys are a wonderful caretaker government. I've lived all over New York State and Long Island. I've been intimately involved in similar battles in 5 communities. You guys are great. But there's a time when you've gotten sometimes in the life of the community when you are no longer effective being caretakers. We are in the war. The amazing turnout tonight, despite the weather, the amazing turnout at St. Gregory's, despite a snowstorm, I feel empowered now. I understand that we're on the right track. This monstrosity should not be built. There are umpteen reasons, you know them all. I'm not going to go through them again. I got a new one for you. One of our experts told us that 76 fire pits. 76 fire pits are the equivalent of citing an old-fashioned municipal incinerator in our midst. Anybody in your family have respiratory problems or asthma? Good luck to you. I wish you well. This is a war. This monstrosity must not be there to destroy 77 acres of virgin land at the expense of a fragile environment, a lovely, beautiful, magnificent environment that feeds us and contributes to our life here is obscene. It's an immoral act. We have been hearing from people all over the country who are fighting similar battles against the same organization, and their complaints and concerns are all the same. Somebody told us, an expert told us yesterday, their business plan is to build it and sell it. Are we going to open our doors to this kind of entrepreneurship? I certainly hope not. I certainly hope we have more gumption than to sell to this, and we need to hear from the board that you're either against it or you're with it. That's what people are here for. That's what people want to hear.
Thank you, Paul. We're good? You guys are all good? Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment.
I'll take one. Is there one more person who didn't sign up that wants to?
Can I have 20 seconds?
No, because we set a precedent. No, sorry, next time. Okay, Laura?
So I'd like to say, I know I'll speak for myself and others on the board can speak too. I definitely am against Terramore, and I'm definitely for Citizens Against Terramore, which is why I came out to St. Gregory's, which is why I've been to meetings, which is why and thank you, Susan, for inviting me to the last meeting that your group had, and I'll continue coming and finding a way. The trick is going to be finding a legal way to stop it. So I am totally in agreement with what everybody is saying about all the risks. The risks are serious. We are in town, and I'm working with you to help find a way that we can legally stop it. But the trick is how to legally stop it. I definitely am with the group that is against Terramore. That's just clearly where I stand, just so you know.
Solid ditto to Laura.
Ditto. Okay, ditto.
Say, I don't think it's a trick. I think we need to enforce Woodstock's law. It says that you can't, you need a permit if you're going to affect the wetlands or the water course here. And this clearly is. They need to come to Woodstock. They need a permit. We should require that they do that. I mean, that is my belief.
You believe that the project requires a Woodstock wetlands and watercourse permit?
If they are planning to destroy part of the wetlands in Woodstock, absolutely, that's exactly what the law says.
Well, the law, no, we're talking at the board. I'm not taking public comments. We're talking at the board.
It doesn't say if they're going to build in Woodstock. It says if that.
So what I would ask you to do, I'll give you the number for the Association of Towns. If you.
I have contacted the Association of Towns.
And do they feel that we can?
They have not responded.
Okay, so let's see what they have to say, and we can go from there.
I mean, my belief was that they would respond quickly. They haven't. I will contact them again, but you're just so I'm clear. Your understanding, you believe that the watercourse law can be applied to a project in Sotheby's? No, it's a project that is destroying the wetlands in Woodstock. It doesn't
It's not
say,
physical.
but it doesn't say in the water course law.
I'm just asking a simple question, Ben, and I'm not arguing. You believe that this project that's in Saugerties, we can apply the wetlands and water course law?
I believe that if it destroys the wetlands in Woodstock, they need a permit.
Interesting theory. So let's chase that one down.
I'm not chasing anything. It's not
No,
a trick.
No.
It is the Woodstock Town Code.
But it's so let's look at how that might be applied. Maria Elena, did you want to add anything?
I'm still firm about Woodstock becoming an involved agency,
Okay.
so.
Okay, now we're done now. We're going into executive session, so I'm going to clear the room. Melanie, you can shut down the Zoom meeting. We're going into executive session to discuss police